right, there we go. Had a little false start there. Hopefully that didn't confuse anybody. We'll see who gets here first. This is the 11th voiceover livecast. Lori English is first. Ooh, we'll see how quickly. Ooh, Tim Dietrich. All right, that was quick for a rowdy. Hi, Lori. Hi, Tim. Hope your day is going beautifully. Hey, Michelle. All right. Fantastic. This thing is always interesting. Hi, Don. Charlene. Okay, we're going to have a strong, rowdy contingent. That's good. Morning. Yeah, this thing usually tells me when somebody logs in, but it didn't for you, Michelle. That was weird. Hi, Lori. We're just going to get warmed up here, and I'll get started in just a minute. Get a few people in here. It is a beautiful day in Columbus, and this is my only day off in about a 9-day stretch where I'm doing about, I think it's 11, hosting or playing music events in 9 days. So I'm looking forward to spending some time outside. You got the pop-up window. Good. What was I going to say? So yeah, I'm just looking forward to having a kind of a day off on this particular day. Hey, G. So I'm going to be prepping for book 3 of the Out of Africa series. This one will be called Out of Desperation. So I've got to get that done between now and Sunday and hopefully start production on Monday. I've taken a few weeks off of the audiobook stuff just so I can kind of focus on the music because I scheduled myself kind of crazily. A little too crazily. I'm not going to do that anymore. And Michelle Pollock Dalton is actually here watching this live feed, and she has Out of the Ashes Book 1 available for free, the ebook. Not the audiobook, but the ebook is free right now. So take advantage of that. It's a romance set in the 70s in California. Pretty unique, and I really... famous last words. No, I'm going to slow down. No, the story is great in this series, and I've really been enjoying it. So I'm going to be reading some nonfiction. This is, I'll actually explain that in a minute. Right now my voice is a little gravelly, a little worn out from all the activity. So it's not the best for this kind of work. And this is where I usually kind of run into trouble when I overschedule myself. Oop. I think I saw Richard. Richard, you're not even close to being first this week. So I'm in my booth. I've got the light on this time. I know it's a little bright, but I don't know. I just felt like putting it on. I've got some new scents in here. It smells very fresh. It's nice. Yeah. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. So this is a nonfiction thing, and I got hooked up with Findaway Voices, which is a really cool production company out there doing audiobooks and other things, and they asked me to do some snapshots for Scribd. That's SCRIBD.com. And I've done a couple dozen for them. And they're just basically snapshots of audiobooks. So someone else has narrated the audiobook, and I'm coming in and doing this kind of overview, summary type of thing for them. And those are available on the Scribd site. So it's been pretty interesting. And this one is Snapshot of a History of the World in 6 Glasses by Tom Standage. So it actually has to do with alcohol, Coca-Cola too, but it's mainly about the fun stuff. So I'm going to read this. And again, my voice is probably not suited for this particular morning. trying to be more conversational with this kind of work. It's different from the fiction, the darker sci-fi, mystery, horror stuff, and certainly the romance that I do. Hi, Alicia. We have 5 rowdies in here. It's fantastic. But I just wanted to do something different. Hi, Salvatore. All right. We'll get started here. I'll take a couple little breaks to see what you guys are saying. Hi, Brent. Introduction. What makes an era? Historians often struggle with how to break the continuous line of history into chunks small enough to analyze. In the ancient world, metalworking technology was the dividing line, separating iron from bronze. In modern times, industrialization is a common breaking point. But even more crucial to human survival than industrial production or even metal is water. Without water, a person can survive for days, whereas they can last for weeks without food. The camps, settlements, and migrations of early humans were constrained by the necessity of having water available. In the past 10,000 years, a shift occurred. Water was displaced by other beverages, which ebbed and flowed in popularity. Therefore, the history of the world can be broken up into periods based on beverages: beer, wine, spirits, coffee, tea, and Coca-Cola. To those who drank To know who drank what and why, and where on earth they got it from, is to have a fuller picture of the time. From technological advances to geopolitical machinations, to spiritual and ideological shifts. When you're having a cup of tea or sipping a glass of wine, you're interacting with a historical artifact just as much as when you visit a museum. Beer in Mesopotamia and Egypt. The earliest humans lived a mostly mobile lifestyle, migrating between different camps as their food supply changed from season to season. However, around 12,000 years ago, a shift occurred to a more settled agricultural lifestyle. Due to a quirk of geography, one of the first places agriculture developed was in the Fertile Crescent, an area that stretches from parts of modern-day Egypt to Iraq along the River Nile, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. At the end of the Ice Age, around 10,000 BC, this region supported a marshy environment, ideal not just for grazing animals, but wild cereal grains like wheat and barley. These grains could also be stored more reliably and for longer periods than other foodstuffs. Humans not only developed new technologies to gather and store these grains, they changed their way of life. Settlements began cropping up near these reliable, storable food sources as people chose the stability of grains over the previously migratory lifestyle. Beer was also central to... This is where I would pause the recording. If I were recording. I'm not. Beer was also central to the developing social and religious customs that arose in these new settlements. The earliest drawings of humans enjoying beer show them sipping through straws. Early beer was unfiltered and pulpy, from the communal drinking vessel. The importance of beer as a communal and unifying beverage can still be seen today as people clink their glasses together, symbolically mixing their drinks. Beer became synonymous with civilization. In ancient Sumer, one of the earliest surviving literary texts, the Epic of Gilgamesh, tells how Endico transformed from a beastly figure into a civilized man through eating bread and beer. Beer was also central to ancient Egyptian civilization, and was not only one of the first things written about, but also mentioned more than any other foodstuff. The workers who built the pyramids were paid in bread and beer. Although the early beer had no hops, and beer is no longer an officially sanctioned method of payment, the beverage itself and the social rituals linking it to civilization are still familiar to modern culture. Stopping at the pub or bar after work for a beer Stopping at the pub or bar after work for a beer calls upon traditions that date back to even before the earliest written texts. Wine in Greece and Rome. With the invention of pottery in around 6000 BC, it became possible to make and store wine in a deliberate manner. Like beer, wine is produced naturally through storage and fermentation, but with grapes rather than with grains. The smaller range of suitable climates made wine a rarity and prohibitively and prohibitively and, and prohibitively absolutely and prohibitively expensive throughout beer-drinking Mesopotamia. Wine came to be seen as a status symbol. If you could afford to have it imported from the mountainous wine-producing regions, it was a sign not just of your own personal wealth, but of your city-state's political and economic reach. The earliest wines were produced in the mountains of what are now Armenia and Iran, and winemaking spread first to the Levantine regions. From there, both wines... Hang tight there. From there, both vines and winemaking techniques spread throughout the Mediterranean, taking firm hold in Greece and Italy. For the Greeks, wine became a cultural cornerstone. Wine was how the Greeks distinguished themselves from both their foreign rivals, such as the Persians, and fellow Greek speakers. Wine became a symbol of culture and civilization. Greeks also adopted a custom of drinking wine mixed with water, sometimes up to 8 parts water to 1 part wine. The consumption of unmixed wine was considered dangerous and barbaric. So I'll take a break here to say, all you barbarians at the wineries, at least you're having fun, right? The symposium was a part of Greek ritual wine drinking that spread to Rome. For the Greeks, it was an egalitarian event where wine was mixed in a shared vessel and then distributed by the host into individual cups. A symposium could be host to anything from a serious philosophical discussion to a raucous party. The core idea was that, as the Romans also quipped, in vino veritas, in wine, truth. Drunkenness, while dangerous in excess, revealed a person's true nature and, according to Plato, provided an opportunity to reflect on and correct it. The Romans borrowed much from the Greeks. In addition to their mythology and pantheon, they also carried on the love of wine and developed some of the traits we associate with wine connoisseurship today. Romans preferred wines from specific, high-status locations and preferred older wines. The Roman symposium was divided sharply along class lines, with the host and favored guests getting the best wine, and the slaves drinking a bitter wine made only from the skins of grapes. Just as today, knowledge of specific wines and an appreciation for their particular qualities was a mark of class and sophistication. And again, these are just snapshots. These little sections are parts of larger chapters in the actual books. Hey, Don Swinehart. Hi, Jeff. Patrick. Shirlene. Yuck? What's the yuck? The grape skins? Probably. Alright. Spirits in the colonial period. Distillation was developed as a part of the research boom in Arab cities like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba. While access to Greek texts on science and medicine was lost in much of Europe, the Arabic-speaking world was building on this knowledge, as well as research from India and Persia, to make advances in everything from medicine to astronomy. The process of heating a liquid until it vaporizes and allowing it to condense was used since the time of Mesopotamia to make perfumes. But the researchers in Arab cities were the first documented to apply these techniques to wine. Distilling wine makes it stronger, and is how spirits like brandy are made. Knowledge of distilled wine passed into Europe through alchemical research circles and was produced as vita, and was produced as aqua vitae, and believed to be an invigorating cure-all. As knowledge of the distilling process spread, it became a recreational drink rather than a medicinal one, and an economic alternative to wine and beer, especially in northern areas where grapes didn't grow. This gave birth to whiskey, which is essentially a distilled beer. Distilled spirits also became popular because of how practical they were to transport via boat during the age of European naval combat and exploration. Rum, short for rumbullion, and also known as kill devil, came into being in Barbados and was made from the molasses left over from the process of refining sugarcane into sugar. As with virtually the entire sugar trade in the 17th to 19th centuries, the labor of harvesting and processing sugar was done by African slaves. Rum became popular among sailors and was distilled with citrus as a way to combat scurvy. It was also a currency with which to purchase more slaves from Africa. With Polynesian sugarcane, Arab distilling techniques, African slave labor, and British sailors, rum became the first global drink, requiring input from all over the world for its production. Rum was also linked with slave labor at every step of its production and distribution process. Oh, mixing wine with water. Yeah, oh, that's a lot of water with the wine. Hey, David. John. Yeah. Who would do that? So this is, like I said, I'm kind of in the middle of this busy stretch. I'm doing all right with this, but there would be a time where if I'm making this many mistakes in one paragraph, I might just have to take a break. Just to rest, because then it just makes the editing process a little tougher, which in my last voiceover livecast, I did kind of show you a little bit of how I do that, part of the process. So normally if I made a mistake, I would actually just stop the recording, go back to that spot, re-record it however many times it takes. Coffee in the Age of Reason. In the 17th century, Europe entered into a new age of reason, focused on scientific inquiry and developing new theories, rather than relying chiefly on the authorities of the past. The spread of this keen intellectual curiosity in Europe was mirrored by the spread of a particular drink, coffee. As more and more people were employed in the sedentary trades of writing, bookkeeping, and running shops rather than out in the fields, coffee helped to wake people up at the start of the day. It also helped to stimulate conversation in the intellectual salons of the day. Coffee was safe to drink even in cities because it was made from boiled water, but it was non-alcoholic, and it contained the stimulant, caffeine. As coffee spread through Europe, the coffee house became a central hub of information. Here, people could pick up the latest periodicals and mingle with people from their trade. Coffee houses became known as penny universities because for just the cost of a cup of coffee, 1 or 2 pennies, people could enter into whatever discussion or debate was happening at the time, or at the very least, overhear some interesting gossip. The lecture circuit of the day frequently made stops in coffee houses, leading to the rise of the public intellectual. The Café Proscope in Paris was also one of the places that revolutionary sentiment in France was incubated, both through the public discussion of politics and the growing outrage at seeing some of those present at the discussions wind up imprisoned in the Bastille. To this day, coffee is served at many occasions where people want to stimulate conversation but not impair judgment, from business meetings to first dates. The Internet cafe of the 1990s and early 2000s and the free coffee shop Wi-Fi of our modern era are both heirs to the role at are both heirs to the role of the coffee house as an information hub. Hi, Marvin. From thousands of miles away. Hope you're having a good day out there. I'm going to come out there and see Carl sometime. I love that part of the country. Empires of tea. Whether it is the delicate tea set of high tea or the worker taking her tea break, tea has become synonymous with Britishness. However, this beverage was initially imported from China as an exotic, elite drink. Tea in China began as a medicinal and religious drink that originated near the Himalayas and was likely spread to the rest of China, at least in part, by the arrival of Buddhist monks. However, by the 1st century BC, tea was a household beverage. The first major import of tea from China to Europe was carried out by the Dutch in 1610. Previously, Chinese trade with Europe was mostly the sale of silk and porcelain for silver and gold, since there were no manufactured or technological products from Europe that did not already exist in China. Tea was mostly a novelty in Europe until the 18th century, when its popularity suddenly took off in Britain. Its popularity began when Catherine of Braganza married King Charles II in 1662. She brought her avid tea drinking into the British court, where it became popular among the aristocracy. The second key component in tea's rising popularity was the British East India Company's rise to power. Through gifts of tea, they were able to gain more royal support for their ambitions to control trade in the East, and, as tea became increasingly popular, they were able to corner the market in supplying it. Industrialization played a key role in transforming tea from an Industrialization Industrialization played a key role in transforming tea from an aristocrat. Industrialization played a key role in transforming tea from an aristocrat. This is where, in order to be productive and, not waste time, I don't have time to waste, these kind of lines that I can't say that take 6 or 7 takes would eventually be kind of funny to listen to. But as I said, with my process, I'm replacing everything right away, so I never have outtakes, so to speak. They would be interesting. This is outtake worthy. I gotta finish it, though. Industrialization played a key role in transforming tea from an aristocrat. I hate that word. Damn. And usually it's not all that funny. I'm getting kind of pissed off if I'm actually working, so. But at least if I scream in here, nobody hears it. Industrialization played a key role in transforming tea from an aristocratic drink to the beverage of choice for common Britons as well. Because of tea's stimulant and anti... Because of tea... Damn it. You're watching a professional here. I'm just having you know. Happens to the worst of us. Because of tea's stimulant and antibacterial properties, it was distributed to factory workers as a way of increasing productivity. Mass production also made the cups, plates, and pots necessary for tea service more readily available. The last ingredient necessary to transform tea into a widely available and affordable beverage in Britain was colonization. By importing tea from Indian colonies rather than independent China, it was easier to bring down the price. expropriating resources from elsewhere in the empire. Time for a break. This would be. And you know what? There's one thing about Coca-Cola, but it's I'm not going to have time for it. And yeah, my voice is wearing out. It is the exhaustion from the music. There's always a conflict. The music, if I do too much of it, my voice gets rough. I can't really do the narration. So I try to do as much of it as I can earlier in the week, and then do the editing and proofing on the weekends. Hey, Amber. Professional on a closed course. Yeah, this is pretty closed. It's so yeah, that's all I'm going to do with that. Yeah, with these snapshots, they generally, I don't have my data, my stats on those, but they usually come out to about 15 to 20 minutes, so it takes me roughly an hour to do one, something like that. Hi, Sandy. Oh, you just made it for the end, but I'm actually done narrating. I can take you for a little tour of the booth, I guess. See, I'm in front of the microphone right now, but it's not really on. Let's see the outside. That's where the world is. I have a nice big monitor that I work from. You're sitting in Cracker Barrel watching a live cast. Hopefully it's not too noisy in there. Sadly, though, I'm done. So I'm going to chill out for the rest of the day, prep the book, Out of Desperation for the Out of Africa series by Michelle Pollock Dalton. Again, I'll put a link to the book, and I've already put one out on Facebook. But you can get that ebook for free for a few days. So check that out. And thanks, everybody, for watching. This is fun stuff. Next Thursday is the live music live cast. Give me some ideas. I always try to kind of go genre specific, or the one time I did colors, and so keep it interesting for yourselves. Let me know what you want to hear. See you out there.